Okay. So the thing is, that's the very last session for today. It's all about the story. It's all about what we do every day. And there is already a question. Jesus, tell me.
Introduce yourself.
I'm gonna be like few slides later.
Okay.
The thing is, we all love, at least like, stories that are for kids, right? Such as A Bug's Life. Do you remember that cartoon, right? When we talk about security, it's very important to not point on people. Not say, you did that. Do not check Git blame. No one cares about it. Because all security issues, all vulnerabilities are just bugs. And this is what my session is about. Drupal application security and vulnerability management. It's not about the people. It's about just bugs. First of all, I really like to say a huge thanks to all the sponsors who made this day being able to happen. Because without them, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't enjoy the food. We wouldn't make new friendships. We just can't do that without you, without all of you. Yeah, I always use that picture, even it seems like so young and I'm getting older. I used to be called Captain Reject, because I was the guy who rejected basically everything. Being in QA, now in security assurance, it's kind of like the same. So whatever you are sending to me, except if it's a good session, I'm gonna first reject it. I'm Balazs, I'm working with Drupal since 2007. Currently I have like those titles. The thing is, what matters today is the very last one, Seco's Dreamer. I really love to dream, and I want to dream with you today. And here comes the bug's life. Without all the sessions that we heard today, without all the security programs that we have, that, for instance, Glasswall runs, we wouldn't be able to be that aware of all the threats that affects us. So this session is about, first, security awareness. Those are basically programs done by individuals, done by enterprises, done by even governments to educate employees, to educate people, regardless of they contract them, regardless of they belong to them as employees, regardless of who they are. We all have to let them know we are next to them as professionals, telling them what they should do, how aware they should be regarding their data storage, for instance, or what they should do when they get threatened. Individuals' responsibility are still for company, for following company security policies. And we also have to take care of measurements. Measuring audits, measuring via audits, all these efforts. On organizational structures, we basically have to understand why all these policies are applied as a top to bottom. Basically, on a high management level, they have to be aware of what and how they store, for instance, how they are letting people know and people be aware of what they should do, what they should not do regarding password policies, regarding different data, how they should be stored, how they should be encrypted. Basically, the whole talk will be just pointing on different talks that we heard today. Creating security policies are always happen on a higher management or by a dedicated team if the organization is enough large. Assessing your company's vulnerabilities and also the assets that you have, knowing exactly what you have on-premise, what you are using for that. And obviously you have to, as a company, invest on these security technologies to be able to tackle all the threats that happens day by day. There are a few easy steps that can be implemented. For instance, just by being a CSO, saying, okay, I'm going to use different forms of media to let my people know this is a message and to reinforce that. Also highlighting recent attacks in news is all our responsibility, to letting the people know next to us what happened yesterday, what happened a month ago. As I said in the beginning, you don't have to point on people. I would say you mustn't. All of us have to be aware only of what happened, not who did it. It doesn't matter. When we want to learn out of issues, we have to learn the issue, not who made it. The bug itself is basically a security bug in our case, which can come from failure on authentication or authorization, or data confidentiality can be broken, or even the integrity. All of these are bugs. But bugs have 4 stages. We are getting to the funny part, the eggs. When you have an insect, basically the eggs are the first format of their life cycle, which we turn to IT development or software development and saying the egg phrase is basically the planning, how we can make sure our software products will be secure enough during the whole planning phase and later on during the implementation and so on and so forth. There are always budgeting issues. If you have a very strict budget and they are forcing you, I'm talking mainly to developers now, they are forcing you to develop something in that budget. Do that, but always keep it in your mind. What you are going to write will stay there. So try to follow some best practices. Regardless of we talk about quality or security, those are always there and you just have to be aware of. You have to plan to implement these things iteratively also. There is one approach by Andrew van der Stok saying think in evil. I'd like to point on the reverse engineering session now, because Drew was mentioning we basically as devs want to understand how an attack happens. Basically this is all about. When you are planning a functionality, when you are writing the design for a functionality, always think how it can be compromised. What are the different layers? How do you store the data? How you are making sure those paths will be followed and not others when something has to be implemented. There are some principles that I will share with you. Minimize attack surface area is basically about not giving too many places where compromisation can happen. Establish secure defaults. If there is a variable, there is a configuration, it always comes with a default value. Make sure it is secure enough, it doesn't break anything. Always give the less privileges for a user or for a group of users to not make that top 10 issue, which is security misconfiguration, giving too many privileges for someone. Defense in depth and fail securely are also important when we talk about principles. And do not trust any services. You always have to double or triple check what they are going to send you back. Separate the different duties and also avoid securely the obscurity. Keep security simple. It's not rocket science. You just have to follow basic principles and you are just keeping them always secure. Also fix security issues correctly. Always learn out of it. If you fix something, then go over the whole code base and say, okay, I found the same pattern here and there and I fixed them also. When we turn to the second phase of a bug, which is called caterpillar, we think about the implementation itself until the first release happens. There is a basic principle here that says stakeholders' knowledge of these and how they may be implemented in software is vital to software security. They, on the other side, so let's say business owners, project managers, have to be aware of what we are doing devs, why we are taking not 1 but 2 hours for implementing something to make it sustainable, to make it maintainable, and to make it secure. Protection against disclosure, alteration, and destruction is key here, but also rights and privileges, such as we were discussing before, belonging to the requester. It always depends on them. And management of configuration sessions and errors or even exceptions are key to not give too many information out of the systems. Some practices, basically all of them applies on Drupal, rather few of them are already implemented in Drupal core level, but most of them you also have to take care of when you write Drupal code, such as sanitizing inputs, client and server side as well, encoding request and response. We were listening to encryption. Use HTTPS headers. Do not allow for directory listings. Hide as much information as you have to. But later on also use TLS, and I'm turning to your session, when you said that's the only chance, period. SSL is like all techniques. No, use what is given to make it the most secure. And also set different flags in cookies to protect the client itself. You have to protect everyone. If you are aware of this, then you might force them to change regularly their password, or asking them for setting up quite strong passwords that they are just not going to be able to memorize. Then, of course not. Then using Vault, for instance, to store the secrets could be a solution for that. Later on, if file uploads happen or given as a functionality, you always have to verify what you get and what you are putting to output again. Set secure response headers and hide web server information are also key, because if you are giving any information about your servers to the public, they will use it, they will attack it. If you run on an unsupported version of whatever component, they are going to figure it out. The chrysalis is the third. Yeah, we call it totally differently in Hungarian, which is kind of weird. I mean, the Hungarian language. So that's basically the short period when the first release happens. Testing. How security testing happens, basically we want to discover the issues via scanning or dedicated assessments, rather than it's a vulnerability assessment when we already know what we are looking for, or a security assessment when we just go there and say, okay, I want to test the whole application, injecting, for instance, malicious code, where I can inject my malicious one. But also penetration test, you were pointing on that. Audit and reviews are also keen to understand monitoring or auditing a system, what is the cost, how it gets back, and what we can learn out of it. Deployment, I guess even two sessions were pointing on deployment issues regarding security. Once the infrastructure security brought up many products in the morning to learn and to follow them up, to know how they can be used. And later on, after lunchtime, we got a very broad information, a massive amount of information about platform as a service solutions, how they make also our deployment phrases more secure. And when we talk about the butterfly phrase, we already turn to maintenance and their related activities, such as release management. When happens a testing, you have to make sure on deployment and acceptance phrases, testing are a key step in the pipeline. But also securely delivering code is not like I'm putting the code on a stick. and giving it to the guy who will put it to the server via FTP, right? We are not in the 90s anymore. But also implementing a deployment acceptance test is one of the most important part where testing can happen. And that has to be as similar or as close to the production environment as we heard out of the past session. Security incident response, and I think Drew could tell us lots of things about it, how disclosures happen, what are the hit and the 0-day or even full or limited ones, with and or without vendor response. We are in Drupal usually, so we are quite safe because we have dedicated vendors. But the question is how much we can trust. When it fails, how does it go to the public? When there will be some news, how we can be assured those incident management steps will be followed up, will be followed by policies that are always given as the same by vendors. Identification, basically during maintenance phase, are always two separated steps. Either you are going for evolutive maintenance, when there are new requests always, and you have to implement something that might break as a bug again, so as a security bug, a previously implemented functionality. So you have to be always aware of that. Resource monitoring here is a key. You have to know what are deployed there, what are those components, what are the versions of them. Again, pointing on many sessions today when these awarenesses got raised. When we talk about corrective maintenance, we just basically fall down on the case when there is a new version regarding vulnerabilities are discovered and fixed for a component. You have to take care of it. You have to make your clients sure and aware they are paying for that service. It doesn't just happen, yeah, out of blue. Vulnerability management is one of the things that I do daily in a cycle of detecting issues, such as in Drupal, then reporting the issue to the right vendor, and then basically through a full workflow, we remediate it. But then there are cases when your management or your business will say, okay, it's a Wednesday evening, for instance, in Drupal, and we can't remediate it directly. Those are the what-if cases. You have to make sure your higher management are or is aware of, if you don't remediate now, at least try to mitigate the risk, because it will lower the risk severity globally, and you will be able to deploy next day or next week if it can be mitigated. If it can't, then accepting risk could be also a solution. Risk assessment. Okay, I'm really fast, sorry. Wow, 18 minutes. And I lost my, yeah, here you go. So risk assessment in this step is important to understand the assets and their taxonomies. Measuring the practices based on OWASP guidelines regarding threat agent and vulnerability factors. How you tackle different threats is basically a key to learn out of the different incidents. And obviously you will always impact the business. The business will be always against of immediate actions until they are aware, and again awareness, aware of what if something happens. The very last point in this case, in this session even, is the trusted sources. So until you don't have subscriptions or until you don't follow different sources, you are just not aware of what happens around. For instance, in Drupal, we have the Drupal Security Team. They announce predictedly at the same time, same release windows. If they don't, they will let you know upfront they will violate that release window, just what happened in this week. But also following open source libraries such as the CV and the MVD are keen to know what are your assets and what happens with your assets. That was all. So we can turn to questions, and I'm listening to it for about 10 minutes.
Oh, can I answer questions?
Yeah.
Just have one.
Go ahead.
Do you consider, or would you consider human factor as a bug as well? People as a bug?
Until we don't educate them, yes.
Mm-hmm.
When we educate them regarding security bugs, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When we educate people, so like given security awareness sessions or trainings even, or follow-up activities, then I would say the risk or the bug factor of a human resource will be lower, will be never eliminated fully, because we are all people. But regarding that, replacing it by automation could be also a risk factor, saying it might not be immediately updated. Which one is better?
I'm not talking just about the developers, but for example, editors.
For sure. What we were discussing before, like do not give too many roles or privileges to users who you can't trust because of lack of knowledge, for instance. So like why would you give almost administrator privileges for a user who is basically a web editor or a webmaster? You shouldn't. I mean, you mustn't. Educating them. That's the key.
The only thing is that, for example, users share passwords or users click on links that they shouldn't and things like that. How would you tackle on this process?
For that, basically, if the organization is enough big, there should be regular audit. So like there should be a team of X amount of people who goes around and does physical activities, practices, like do not put in a sticky note your password on your monitor, things like that. Those are also happening, huh? So like, yeah, we all laugh because we are aware of this, right? To not do, but you can't be sure like a secretary will be aware as much as you are. That's why they have to be also involved for these practices, for these programs, right?
Like sharing credentials on Slack and stuff like that.
For instance, or using encryption for doing that. But encryption also has to be not guessable. So like, yeah, not an easy topic. Exactly.
You mentioned forcing users to change the password on a schedule. What use case would you have for that, except for when there's compromise?
Use case for forcing them to change?
Yeah.
Desktop.
To lower the risk of being compromised, that's the thing.
Yeah, so basically desktop machines should be updated regarding passwords, like I guess monthly or bi-month or every second month. So as a security policy by the company, it should be set up. If the company accepts that risk to be compromised by allowing passwords to be only changed once in a year, then they accept that risk. This is in an organizational level saying, okay, we are taking the risk to be compromised just because we lower the regularity of changing passwords. That always has to happen on a organizational level. So who takes care of security awareness in an organization, then he or that team or she will say, it is enough secure for me or for our enterprise. That's how it goes. Mainly.
That one is quite an interesting case though, isn't it, where I think the most recent NIST guidelines have said don't force users to change their passwords too frequently because it's counterproductive, and they end up using password 1, password 2, password 3 just because they can't.
Sticky notes and
That's why I asked.
It's not so easy.
No, well,
even to answer.
I would recommend using things like a 2FA token or a certificate login on
Yeah.
one way. Because those are,
It's not always possible.
well, they're a lot easier to keep secure.
Yeah. There are systems that they don't support, unfortunately. Things like that.
Again, passphrases.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
But still, people can usually remember passphrases. So it's not as easy.
Or
You can't
always
really
generated
puzzle.
password. Do not allow them to choose password. Generate that.
But
And then
it's sticky notes.
store it. No.
No,
Then store it.
on a time basis.
Uh-huh.
Top.
Exactly.
Of course, you can use also biometrics to allow the system. But
Multi-factor.
Then it's
Yeah.
really
Then
altogether.
cost-wise,
Yeah.
it's going to be a
Also,
question.
yeah.
Mhm.
And biometrics you cannot change.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
If you
it's
compromise, you
leaking.
just
It's
die.
done. Yeah.
Please reset your fingerprint.
Or your DNA.
Yeah, exactly.
Please.
Or you just
Um,
get fired or something.
Or
Yeah,
someone
we have
chops
those
off your
Yeah.
thumb because they want the access to your computer.
Ooh, yeah.
As you might have seen during the day, I tweeted in the name of Secos Day everything, or tried to tweet everything, or as much as I was able to. I would close this session and also with a few other slides the whole day, turning it to the Secos walk. Whomever joins, feel free. It's going to be nice, especially in this weather. Saying a big thanks to everyone, especially for the chance to give this session, which is like weird. Yeah, it got accepted. Was great, right? Yeah, let me turn to the closing session, okay? So today we got these basically hashtags, let's say, which are the topics that we covered. Honeypot, infrastructure security, reverse engineering, platform as a service, authentication, encryption, application security, and security awareness. I would like to say a huge thanks again to all sponsors and invite them who can join for a nice walk around the office and also in the city. Here are all of them. But there is one big thing that I have to tell you, which is this. So we did that last November. It failed, okay? So it got merged to a CMS Garden event, which was 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. It was financially a loss. So on my side, I have put their money. I felt I do something great for the future. Awesome. When we are today, it seems quite like zero, so I'm still in minus, which I don't care. But there is a statement that I want to give you now. There is no more Secos Day, because it can happen like this, always organizing a one-day event, but it's just not sustainable. People can't really meet, discuss lots of things in a one-day session. So it's gonna be Secos Days, 2 days, okay? And it's gonna be in Bulgaria. We are going to Sofia, 25th, 26th October. It's basically the weekend before DrupalCon Amsterdam.
Oh no.
So I really hope I will see all of you in Sofia. It's a very cheap country with lots of beautiful ladies. Average age is pretty high. Lots of beautiful roses, great food, great drinks, and in October still fairly good weather. And from there we will jump together to Amsterdam. Okay? So Secos Days, we are making it happen. That's all for today. Let's make that walk together happening. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Balazs.
Thank you, Balazs.